On a scale of 1 to a gazillion, how hard could it be for a Filipino to apply for Schengen Visa? Hey Zesties, it's already August and almost the Burr months. For those of you who doesn't know what I mean, in the Philippines, we call September to December as the Burr months, and it's the start of Christmas as well. With that, I mean at the first day of September, you will start hearing Christmas songs and seeing Christmas gift ideas in the malls. It's the more cheerful time of the year. Well, time flies when you haven't traveled in a while and you're super busy with mundane things, isn't it? Happy first few weeks of August and welcome back to the Gleeful Talkshow where we share zesty stories to cultivate the happiness and hero within and out. If you haven't already, please follow, rate, and review this podcast at your favorite podcast platforms or visit www.gleefultalkshow.com. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. That's at Gleeful Talk Show. If you have episode recommendations, feel free to drop me a note to gleefultalkshow@gmail.com. Before we dive right in, I have some exciting news for you. I mean, mainly for me, but I guess you might be excited too, I hope. So, I recently launched a new website, which is another passion project of mine, just like this podcast. So, please visit and show some love to www.theambivertlife.com. That's the Ambivert, Ambivert, life.com. Theambivertlife.com. I choose the word ambivert not because I strongly identify as an ambivert, because I'm really more of an introvert, but it does signify balance between introversion and extroversion in so many levels, literally and metaphorically. So, the Ambivert Life is a lifestyle website where I share my other hobbies such as fragrance, skincare, food, travel, and other musings. So, it's still very fresh, and I just created it last week, I'd say 31st of July, the whole day and the whole weekend. So, it has very few content right in there, but I'm planning to put in more. And it has been a while since I blogged. I've blogged way back, but it has been in my thoughts recently, like even like in the past year, to really do a blog to consolidate all of the things that I like aside from podcasting. So, alas, I just went with it. I didn't really know how to create a website and I just explored it and boom, I was able to create it. It's not very pro though, but I hope you just try and visit it as well. You might be wondering how odd is the title of this episode. Yes, it's odd, but you'll find out why later on. We are planning to go to Europe in a few weeks' time, but because I'm just going to say it, I'm a third world country citizen. We need to apply for visa, Schengen visa for that matter, if we go to EU, even if it's less than 90 days, which is in contrast to other first world country citizens like Australians, where they are only required to apply to a visa if they are staying more than 90 days in a 180-day period. So the Schengen area is made up of 26 European countries that have common entry and exit requirements. It allows travelers to move freely between member countries without going through border controls or getting a visa for each country. For Australians, as I mentioned earlier, they don't really need a visa to travel to countries in the Schengen area for up to 90 days in any 180-day period. Your reason for travel must either or a combination of business purpose, visiting family and friends, holiday, cultural and sports events, airport transits, official visits like if you're a government official, medical reasons, or short-term study and research purpose. You can't apply for Schengen visa if you're planning to study, work, or live in one of the member countries for more than 90 days, and you need to apply for national visa for that country while you are in Australia. Just note that some European countries, like European countries part of the continent, are not part of Schengen, such as UK, Ireland, Croatia, Bulgaria, Romania, to name a few. So if you'd like to visit those countries whilst in the European continent, you need to apply to a different visa. When I was in London back in around 2015, I was there for work and there was a long weekend at the time. And unfortunately, I didn't have much time to apply for a Schengen visa in order to visit France by train. So I was unable to go to France at that time, which was a bummer, but I was able to visit France on a different occasion. So it worked out well in the end. But Zesties, our episode today is not about that. I sometimes just go off tangent, but this episode is about my recent visa application, which was a mess with a capital MESS. I haven't traveled to Europe in 3 years. Well, I wanted to say I haven't traveled internationally in 3 years, but I did go to the Philippines in 2020 and this year for visiting family. As you know, that my mom died this year and my dad had a health scare back in 2020. So when I prepared for my Schengen visa, needless to say, I wasn't that prepared. It has been 3 painful years, Zesties, since I was out and about, and even though VFS Global had a checklist, I just wasn't really paying attention to it that much. So, if you don't know, VFS Global is like a hub where you apply for visa, whichever country that is, because some people just go directly to the embassy or consulate, but if there isn't any embassy or consulate near you, VFS does help you out with the visa processing for a fee. I have to say, I'm much organized at work than I am at traveling, and that's mainly because my husband is the one planning it. I'm that type of person where if someone steps into doing something, I let them because I know they enjoy it and I'll just roll with it. But if no one's doing it or no one's planning it, I would step in and plan it. Anyway, whether in Australia or Philippines, the first thing to do is schedule an appointment with VFS Global near you. You can just Google it and it will show up. The problem with mine was we didn't really expect that we couldn't get an appointment before August. Even though I wanted to apply in July, there's just no available appointment. There were some, but only in Sydney and Melbourne, and I could go to Canberra where the embassy is, but that's just too much work and money and time, right? Anyway, we called VFS and they clarified that the appointments in August will only be available by end of the July. So, when I got the appointment, I had to prepare a lot of documents. And you know what? I did this back in 2019, but for some odd reason, the 3 year pandemic just wiped out my memory. So, on a scale of 1 to a gazillion, how hard could it be for a Filipino to apply for Schengen visa? I'm not saying that it's off the charts, but man, there's a lot of prep. So I'm going to break it down for you, Zesties, in case you're curious or would like to apply for one in any VFS near you. So, before you schedule your appointment, make sure that you already have your documents ready from the checklist. Now, Zesties, this is the quote unquote fun part because you need to read carefully what really is required and you don't want to make the same mistake as I did on the day I went to my appointment. So, the documents you need to present all depends on which route you are going for. Are you going for the invitation route or just on your own? So it really depends. And so I was going on my own with my EU citizen spouse. So take note that if you are going with an EU citizen spouse, the visa is for free, but you still have to pay processing fees from VFS, as they will be the ones checking and sending your documents to the embassy. I've shared the checklist on the episode notes below, and I will also share it on my blog, theambivertlife.com. But what I wanted to stress in this episode are the following because believe me, I was so in distress when I came there. All right, first is you would really need to abide to an ICAO standards compliant passport size photo and should not be older than 6 months. So I had a lot of passport photos, by the way, but I have to take another one because it has been 3 years, as you know. So there was even an Aussie guy in VFS who was in the same room as me. And I guess he's going for some working holiday visa in Austria or something. And his photo looks very different from himself in real life. And the VFS lady was saying that, oh, you look different on the photo. I mean, Zestie, this could have gone the other way around, but I couldn't clearly hear whether she told him to get another photo, which was available on the same building, or she just let it go. Because in the end, Zesties, it's not really VFS who's giving the decision, but the embassy, but they are just there to check that you have complied all the requirements as due diligence. The reason I was hearing it was actually this guy was next in my queue, but because your girl, which is me, was not following instructions, aka the checklist, properly, I had to sit down and sort out some documents. So it took me like an hour and 30 minutes being there. So I was really, really clumsy and unprepared, unfortunately. So learn from my mistakes, Zesties. And then the next one that I want to stress is the proof of visa status in Australia. This could have been easy if I wouldn't have forgotten about it. You see, I went for the earliest August date available for my appointment because I had to take into account the processing time of the visa. But the earliest one I could get was the first week of August, and I was still busy at work. So in the morning, I forgot to pull out my Vivo information, which is VEVO information, and send it to VFS. So I had to do it when I came there. By the way, the Vivo visa and confirmation should be done on the day of your appointment. That's why it was imperative for me to have it done in the morning. But I got distracted with work. I was busy at work. So Vivo visa information is just mainly the government or the immigration sending it directly to VFS about your visa status. Good thing it was an easy fix. Phew. Now, the juicy part, the proof of travel insurance. The checklist indicated that your insurance should have a minimum cover of 30,000 euros in each of the following subcategories: urgent medical treatment, hospitalization, repatriation for medical reasons, repatriation of mortal remains, and funeral expenses. When you submit your documents, you should not only bring your certificate of insurance, but also the table of benefits and the relevant pages that indicate those subcategories. It should also clearly indicate that it will cover the EU and should be issued by a company operating in Australia or within the EU. Good thing I saw this and I brought the whole booklet or the whole cover of my insurance. And the VFS lady was kind yet conscientious enough to find and highlight each coverage that was required. The funny thing is, in the face of my table of benefits, it didn't really clearly indicate the repatriation of mortal remains and funeral expenses. So she and I had to scour the pages to find it. Alas, we found it. It was in page 14. I'm so glad this insurance is quite complete and comprehensive and also quite specific for Schengen area too. Well, the hubs was the one who found it, and it specifically said that if you hold a valid Schengen visa and you had to bid adios, then they will pay a maximum of 30,000 euros. Phew. At least they kind of met, right? Because the checklist said that what is required is minimum of 30,000. But they will pay maximum of 30,000 euros. But I was a bit confused as well because at the end of the section, the coverage mentioned something about this section's coverage is unlimited, something like that. So I'm not really sure, but the VFS lady has agreed with it and she's fine with that and she thinks it's appropriate. And I'm also glad that my insurance pays for COVID-19 hospitalizations and stuff like that. So Zesties, make sure to have a comprehensive travel insurance when you travel because you never know. Now, the fun part. You know the guy I was talking about earlier? Apparently, his insurance mentioned somewhere around 20,000 Australian dollars. So it's not 30,000 Australian dollars, but 20,000 Australian dollars. And as you may know, AUD is lesser than euros. I just overheard it and wasn't really across the details. But what caught my attention was that the VFS lady was now explaining to the guy the difference between repatriation of mortal remains and funeral expenses. I mean, I wish it was part of a show what I'm seeing and on how innocent yet hilarious that explanation was. Not that because the guy had like only 20K dollars for that part of the insurance. I hope you don't misunderstand, but the scene of someone explaining about mortal remains in a visa processing center is just gold. Truly gold. It kind of made my day despite how stressful it was.
One eternity later.
Next, the proof of accommodation should have your name on it. The one I printed didn't have my name on it, so it was really so clumsy mistake. And when you fill out the actual Austrian visa application form, make sure to indicate the name of the hotel, its address and phone number on the section where it asks who invited you. So initially I've put not applicable because the hotel didn't invite me. But anyway, I had to indicate it there on the spot, which again added to my stress, for which I was the sole cause of it, not really following instructions. But to my defense, the Austrian visa application form was quite difficult to actually fill out because each box section starts with German and it's super long, and the English section is just in the last part of the sentence. But anyway, I blame this all in the pandemic because I haven't traveled in years and I don't know how to travel anymore. I remember when the domestic borders here in Australia first became open, it was truly a disaster at the airport because people forgot the usual stuffs you do at security. You know where you need to pull out any aerosol, liquids, laptops, etc. on the security check? Everyone forgot about it. Everyone just forgot how to do it or even on whether it exists or existed before, you know? So the wait is longer than usual because everyone did it on the spot and wasn't prepared. This was actually what I felt on that day. I forgot how this visa application goes already. To top it all off, Zesties, I need to submit a proof of financial means in the country of residence. There were 2 sentences after this to explain what they meant, and I just didn't simply notice or read it at all or read it properly. I provided a proof of balance with a stamp from the bank, but what they actually needed and was clearly explained in the checklist, and what I also actually forgot the last time I went there to apply for visa in 2019, was that they needed at least 3 months of bank transactions, including the current date, to show sufficient funds to cover for my stay in the Schengen area. And this needs to be stamped by bank officials. So in essence, I just actually forgot about my mistake and I committed it again. When I was standing there, it dawned on me that this was what I forgot last time too. Only difference was I was more stupid now because I used the proof of balance instead of the 3 months bank statements. Last time I think I had the 3-month bank transactions but didn't have the stamp of the official. They said I can come back before 3 p.m. to print the 3-month transaction with the bank stamp, but since it was already almost 2 p.m. at that time, and I had to go down to the city, and it takes 20 minutes to go there one way and another 20 minutes back to the VFS office. So it was literally impossible, not literally impossible, but I might not be able to go back on time. And I was actually doing it on a work day as well, so I've spent like more than an hour there. I thought I could have just done this at lunch, like submit and boom, done. But because I wasn't following instructions, I had to take more time. So what I sent to VFS was a printout of my bank statement, the 3-month bank transactions, and then write a cover letter why I couldn't provide a stamped bank statement, and hope to God the embassy will accept it.
Eventually,
Also, Zesties, make sure that the Express Post A4 500-gram prepaid self-addressed envelope is the one that's plastic and not the paper type. I think this is what I learned from the last time I visited VFS. So at least I remembered what I have to learn at that time. So phew. And then the biometrics, people. The biometrics. I was so stressed that I couldn't even determine between left and right. I mean, left hand and right hand. Oh my God. Anyway, it took a bit of time because the machine wasn't working properly, or I couldn't even push my 4 of my fingers properly and whatnot. But in the end, I was able to submit it and be done with it. What I had to pay was around $70, which includes the several pieces of printout I had to ask VFS to print. And VFS fee alone was around $66 because I don't have to pay for the actual Schengen Visa fee. So that's how it went down, Zesties, only for applying for Schengen Visa. I can't imagine when I had to apply for a US visa. Oh, the documents and requirements would be a mountain pile. But I don't know if maybe I'm up to the challenge. Will you challenge me, Zesties? So I think that's the biggest chunk of my recent experience in VFS application for Schengen Visa. And I hope you learned something from this episode, from my mistakes as well. And this would maybe serve as a reminder for myself the next time I apply for Schengen Visa or any visa for that matter. This episode is edited from the script. If you're a creator, the script is a must, especially for podcasters who either do video or audio. It's very easy and intuitive. The script lets you edit your audio and video like you're editing Microsoft Word. Don't believe me? Try it out. If you try it out, I do earn a little commission, but I'm telling you this not because of that, but believe me, it's really saved a lot of my time in editing. It makes editing less painful and I dare say a little more enjoyable. I'd like to give shout-outs to the new Zesties from the US, UK, India, and Norway. Thanks so much for listening. Major shout-out to Rarasuchin in the Philippines as well. So before we end this episode, if any of you Zesties would like to share any travel stories, please send them in writing or in a maximum 1-minute audio message to gleefultalkshow@gmail.com. I'll make sure to read or include them on the next episode if you wish. If you fancy lifestyle-related content on beauty, mind, food, and travel, please do visit theamberbertlife.com. Till next week, ta!